It's Halloween weekend. The big question is Tony Khan going to dress up like his little dog Pockets again this year? What do you think? Or is he going to cosplay another one of his action figures?
Well, I think it's bad form to have the same costume for multiple years after you're a child.
Do you remember when the costume phase for the Halloweeny wrestling shows came into being in the early, now when was he a prisoner? Now Vince would have never, I don't think, dressed up legitimately to go to a Halloween party as one of the boys. I don't think he would have gone, but he did do costume. It wasn't the toga party they had at Caesar's Palace for WrestleMania that year, where poor JR shows up in the WWF. First time you see him, he's wearing a fucking sheet without a hood now. Bear that in mind. But when was Vince the prisoner? What show was that on in the early 90s? The Convict?
In Sean O'Shea's dream, every day he's the prisoner, but...
Well, yes.
I don't remember when he did that, but the first...
You remember the picture of it. He's wearing the old-fashioned, like, chain gang outfit with the black and white stripes across the thing on one of the early 90s WWF events as making a mockery of the federal government.
They did a Saturday Night's Main Event where the whole theme was Halloween early on. You had, like, the Iron Sheik dressed as Batman and...
Yeah.
You had a whole bunch of stuff like that, and then a fake house where... Well, I guess not a fake house, maybe a real house, but a fake setup where Vince and Roddy Piper are going to deal with trick-or-treaters, and Roddy's going to give them ridiculous things like painted bowling balls. And then it ends with the kids one-upping Roddy Piper and Vince having a laughing fit.
Well, you remember, obviously, Jim Herd, everything he did was to try to copy on a much smaller scale with much less creativity and a much smaller budget anything that the WWF did. So at Halloween Havoc 90, remember, goddamn it, I can't remember what JR was. Wasn't that was he the Phantom of the Opera one year? Missy Hyatt was dressed up as the Wicked Witch at Halloween Havoc 90. It was in Chicago.
Yeah.
It almost killed the town. They even got a special orange mat and had orange and black, I think, striped ring ropes. The whole ring looked like a fucking Reese cup. And I've told the story before, but that's where the Midnight Express was on the opening match, supposedly against the Rock and Roll, which had been fine, but then Robert Gibson was hurt, so it was Riggy Morton and Tommy Rich, which, again, former NWA World Champion and Riggy Morton, etc., but a put-together team in the opening match, we do the job. And we're supposed to be in an angle with the Southern Boys. And they're in, like, the third match against, I think, the Freebirds, and they're going to do the job, because I'm going to come out dressed as a Confederate general to mock the Southern Boys and fucking do whatever. But then we can't even leave with any heat, because after I make sure that our opponents in our program do a job just right after we did a job, then the baby faces drag me in the ring and beat me up. And that's when Janie Engel, bless her heart, it told me, we rented the costume in Atlanta. We got to take it back tomorrow, so don't let anything happen to it. So the first thing I told Tracy and Steve was, I said, rip this goddamn coat right up the middle, right off of me. And then fucking whatever, blah, blah, blah. They got, somehow, the coat was 2 sizes too small and the pants were 2 sizes too big. And for my physique at the time, that probably should have been reversed. And it was chaos. But that's when in the territory days, for those of you wanting some classic wrestling content here this week, in the territory days, even if they did something around a holiday or something with a holiday theme, whether it was Christmas or Thanksgiving or 4th of July or Halloween, whatever the case, it wasn't an excuse for everybody to just, on the show, wrestlers, announcers, referees, everybody to just go crazy and just look silly or act silly or do silly skits. You tied in the holiday with the wrestling show, but not to make the wrestling show just look silly and like everybody lost their mind. If it was Christmas, the big promotion was Santa Claus will be in the lobby giving out fucking candy to the kiddies, or the kids get a special ticket price because especially people in the South had a lot of kids. Or at Thanksgiving, there'd be the big, Thanksgiving spectacular in Greensboro or in this town or that town, and a big card, the NWA champion. But also we might give away some turkeys to the lucky fans coming in or whatever. But nobody was dressed or put the heel manager in a turkey outfit or tar and feather him because he's a big chicken. But not just up and down the card and decorate the ring side with Christmas trees and Santa and his sleigh with fake reindeer or whatever the fuck. It's become so ridiculous that the holiday takes over the wrestling rather than the wrestling using the holiday and families being together and people being off work as a way to sell more tickets. I mean, the Great American Bash, 4th of July, fireworks, music, live bands, and the wrestling. That didn't mean that every goddamn guy had to go out there and have bottle rockets shoved up his ass. What do you think, Brian?
There was a noticeable upkick in the campiness from Halloween Havoc 89 to Halloween Havoc 90. And Halloween Havoc 89, the first one, you were on the booking committee, pretty much brand new to the booking committee.
Yeah.
Were you against the concept? What did you think of the original concept? And like I said, from year one, it was a Halloween pay-per-view because of the time of year, and it was in Philadelphia, a very dark and spooky place, if there ever was one. But other than that, you didn't have everyone in outfits. Not that I remember. I mean, maybe. Was Gordon Soley ever a vampire?
Goddamn, I'll tell you what. I don't know if it wasn't in 89. They may have done it. They may have just taken a driver's license photo and just, at that point in his life, poor Gudden. But Halloween Havoc 89 was the Thunderdome cage match.
Yeah.
And
with Bruno as the referee in Philly.
Yes. And I was obviously, like you said, I'd been there about 6 weeks. They had just started planning the show when I got on the booking committee. And obviously Bruno was doing it as a favor because he was mad at Vince at that point in time over the various issues he was mad at Vince at. And Bruno's name meant something in Philadelphia, and he was the only guy that could keep order. And it was, oh, God damn it, it was Flair and Sting and Terry Funk and Muta, right?
That's right, with Ole Anderson and Gary Hart as the designated Terminators.
Yes, because it was a takeoff on the old, it was an amalgam of several different gimmick matches with the idea that Halloween spooky theme Philadelphia big cage match, and it's going to be electrified, and there's no way in, no way out. And the cornermen, the heartless Ole Anderson for Flair and Sting, and the heartless Gary Hart for the heels, are the only ones that can signal when their tag team, their men have had enough. And that's the way that you win the matches, when the other team, his guy calls it off. So this was a big deal at the time. This was a big match, and Bruno is referee in Philadelphia. And we didn't know that the cause was lost at this point, and house show gates were, still they had some life in some places. So, but of course that was the nod to Halloween on that show. All the other matches were, straight matches, but then that was the one where we got to the fucking electrified cage that Turner Broadcasting's people, because we were still at the point where this is a big television company. They know how to do or have people or can find people that know how to do this shit, right? And that's what we had been sold the bill of goods on, because they not only had something wired up to obviously not shock anybody into swallowing their tongue, but like a electric fence kind of deal or something with special effect where you could actually get the gist of it, and it would, make the appropriate response or whatever. Well, as soon as they turned the thing on and Muda's going to try to climb out of the cage because he's the athletic one, and he, I guess, goes up. Only the top area of the cage was electrified because obviously we didn't, not only would it be completely fucking phony, but also it would be ridiculous if the whole thing was electrified. Just the top, if you tried to get out, that was the barrier. So they could still run each other into the cage down in the ring and use the cage as a weapon and not have to sell it every time like they're getting fried in Old Sparky. So Muda goes up to demonstrate that, and as soon as they zapped the juice or whatever the fuck they had done, they also had Halloween decorations like witches' brooms and old things you'd find in a fucking haunted house or whatever, out of a burlap sack I saw somewhere, and the shit caught on fire from the pyro that they had and started smoking and burning.
Well, that burlap is...
Well, yeah, and because they had to just, overdress, right? Shit up. So then Muda goes up in it. That was the classic spot. He blows the mist on the fucking burning burlap sack. And Tommy Young was the referee. He's up there trying to whack it with his fucking hand, and Muda blows the mist on it. And then they had to turn the shit off because I don't know whether it was the athletic commissioner, whether it was the building there at the Civic Center, but one or the other said, you've just set an unauthorized fire. And then now if you want to continue the show, you can't do that again. So they had to turn the pyro or the Jew, whatever the fuck they'd set up off on the top of the cage. So the guys had to go up, and when they'd grab it, they had to go, oh, golly, and just sell it. Like, oh, yeah. And Bruno had to be thinking, what the fuck have I done?
That's how much he hated Vince. The fact that he was there.
He's in a fucking electrified cage that got set on fire.
That was the coolest moment as a kid, though. That's one of the reasons why Muda couldn't stay a heel. Because as soon as you saw that, you loved the guy forever. Yeah. He's the coolest guy ever.
Jesus Christ. But, again, and in the 70s, people are going to say, oh, well, they had the Mummy in the 70s at Halloween. And they had, especially in Tennessee, because Lawler loved horror movies and he had tons of monster masks. But somehow, even then, and people have said, they saw the Mummy in Texas and one in the Carolinas, and they had Florida at one point, and out on the West Coast, whatever the case. And Dr. Frank, that was Lawler's Frankenstein monster, who was Ken Dillinger. And the famous story it wasn't Ken Dillinger in the mask. It was, oh, goddamn, he just passed away. And now I've gone blank on his name, in Memphis, the guy that helped Lawler and Jimmy Hart do records and all that stuff. Help me, Brian. That's not even one you know, is it?
No, it is one I know, and his name is slipping me too. The guy who had the little record company.
Yes.
Son of a bitch, he did the music with them.
Yes. Well, we'll come. Anyway, he was in the box when they phoned in the bomb scare. And they didn't get him out of the box. But Dr. Frank was a guy in a fucking padded up Frankenstein outfit, the old dusty jacket and the big boots, and then a Frankenstein mask. And the Mummy was just what the Mummy sounds like. And of course, everybody made fun of me, and I've made fun of myself for Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the 90s. Hey, Rick Rubin wanted a mummy. Rubin wants a mummy, man. But at the same time,
Jim Blake,
thank you. Good Lord. Both of us are well, you've got COVID. Now, are you going to get the brain fog now?
As of this morning, I don't have COVID anymore.
Okay, well, so COVID won't even stick around with you very long. You run everybody off.
Well,
But anyway, nevertheless, what I'm saying is, in the territory days, they didn't present this as ridiculous because it wasn't supposed to really be a mummy or really be Frankenstein. And fortunately, pre-internet and pre-sports entertainment, everybody didn't know the goddamn step-by-step granular minutia of the inner workings of the wrestling business. So the announcers could say that such and such heel manager, whoever, has brought this. Well, obviously, this ain't the Frankenstein monster. This is some big fucking, he's 6'6", and he's 300 pounds. Or he's not a mummy. He's not 3,000 years old, but this fucking guy's a giant. He's near 7 feet tall. He's got that arm that never bends. We think he has a metal rod in that arm. It's all wrapped up. We can't tell, and that's what the heel mummy would knock the baby faces out with. And they would present it as this heel manager or whoever was the instigator behind this has got some giant fucking nut, put this outfit on and fuck with everybody and it scared the kids. And they would present it as a legitimate threat to the baby faces for about 2 or 3 weeks until you found out, the Achilles heel with the mummy or Dr. Frank or Duke Myers one time was the Colossus of Death, is that they got no mobility. They're not fast enough. The baby face can outsmart them. And once he gets them off their feet, well, it's like they're fucking almost helpless because it takes some time to get back up and blah, blah, blah. And then you would steal a couple of houses and they'd be gone. And it still didn't have people. I've actually seen people mad enough after the mummy beat Jerry Jarrett with help from Sam Bass and that damned mummy's loaded fucking forearm that grown men were up on the fucking edge of the apron of the ring, pounding and screaming that something needed to be done and somebody needed to kill Sam Bass.
Hey, the fact that Lawler didn't do a Michael Myers wrestler, does that mean he didn't like the Halloween movies?
It must have. It must have. Because now that you think about it, every other we had... Because, I mean, let's face it. Yes, Lawler did go crazy with the pop culture monster movie or movie monsters and superheroes. We had a Spider-Man. Spider-Man was a job guy from the Memphis area. I think he was from somewhere in Arkansas. And he worked as Rooster Cogburn because he was like normal adult height, 6 feet tall, but he couldn't have weighed more than 160 pounds. And that was in 1977, the most ludicrous sight you'd see in a pro wrestling ring is a guy only weighed 160 pounds or whatever. So Lawler got him a Spider-Man outfit and he worked for 2 weeks. And one of Wayne Ferris's first gimmicks after he broke in was the Kisser, because Lawler was a Kiss fan. So he painted him up like Gene Simmons and put him in a Kiss body stocking with a Kiss fucking logo across his chest because he had the V-neck in the stocking. And David Schultz, when he was a rookie, his first year, he was the Riddler goddamn, he'd been in the business for a couple of years. He must have just had heat with somebody because they made him in a Riddler outfit for like 3 weeks. We also had Igor, who was just the generic monster mask with a big fucking furry tunic over the top of it.
No humpback, though.
No, because he couldn't be pinned then, so they couldn't do the hunchback. That was Ken Dillinger, too, I think. Ken Dillinger was Dr. Frank. The Mummy was Ron Wright in 1974 in Memphis for a few weeks, I believe. And we also had Frank Morrell was Lucifer in a devil mask, and the aforementioned Duke Myers, the Colossus of Death.
And after you left, they had Freddy Krueger and Jason and all sorts of crazy shit going on. Hey, Jim, to go back to what we just said about Igor and the Humpback, were you there when Hurd actually pitched the idea of a tag team that couldn't be pinned because they...
Yes, I was there. The Hunchbacks. It is not a lie. It's not a rib. It's not an urban legend. The tag team that cannot be pinned. He literally said that in me, Ric Flair, Kevin Sullivan, Jim Barnett, Jody Hamilton, Jim Ross. Who would I be leaving out that was in the room? That was before that Terry Funk was involved.
Did you say Barnett?
I said Barnett, didn't I? But yes.
Was he telling Hurd it was a good idea?
No. Hurd would. We were all somewhat stunned, right? And nobody was jumping in to defend it. But that was they see, we call them the Hunchbacks. And they got the outfits on, whatever you describe them. They got the big hump on their back, so you can't pin them. So they're unbeatable. They're the only unbeatable tag team, and that's the gimmick, is if you try to pin one shoulder, well, the other shoulder roll over, and that's when. And Ole, did I mention Ole? Because this is the kicker to the story. Ole was there. That's when Ole said, okay, Jim, book them with me, your unbeatable tag team. The bell will ring, the match will start, I'll grab one of them, slap an armbar on him, and make him submit. I just beat your unbeatable tag team. And that's what Hurt said. Oh, God damn it, Ole, you know what I mean. I'm trying to say.
And that is an Anderson Brothers match right there.
Yes. But yeah, that was legitimate. That was absolutely not made up.
Imagine.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Did you ever think what would have happened? Again, it didn't. Thankfully, would have driven you even more crazy. But what if Herd had been right? What if his bad ideas had worked and it caused him to unleash further ideas?
Well, the thing is, the bad ideas not working didn't really stop him from having more bad ideas. Remember, the ding-dongs did not just work that one TV taping and were never seen again. They went around the loop for a few weeks. The one, if we could only, when they got the rights to the Turner Classic Movies, or Turner had all the MGM movies, there was no Turner Classic movie back then, but you know what? They got the rights to all the movies in the Turner umbrella. And that's when he said, oh, if we could just find a one-legged wrestler, we could have Long John Silver. That made the papers in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
But what if
he didn't back off from... Boy, the first fucking ding-dongs match, when those little bells, every time they took a bump in those full body suits that had the little jingle bells like on your Christmas stocking attached to them, and the bells were just rolling because they're little balls. Jingle balls of bells, and they're rolling all over the ring, and the guys are trying not to step on them and turn their ankle, and every time they take a bump, then the ring starts jingling, and the people at the TV audience, and this was somewhere like Gainesville, Georgia, or Rainsville, Alabama. This was not a big city crowd, and they were fucking scoff laughing at it. What were you going to say?
I don't know. We were talking about... Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Like, imagine if Flair had said, okay, I will be Spartacus. And then it worked. And somehow he became a pop culture icon as Spartacus, Ric Flair. What other ideas? I mean, he tried to have other incorporation with not just contemporary movies, but classic films from the Turner archive. I mean, that's the other funny thing. People think you're out of touch. You're not like, hey, let's have characters based on Harold Lloyd movies or whatever the fuck he was doing.
Hey, you know what? I just thought of something. I told him one day, what about a character based on Captain Bligh? And looked right at him. He didn't get it. Unfortunately, whatever the case, we'll never know whether any of Jim Herd's ideas would have actually worked, because none of them ever did.
So to wrap this up, I guess you're not against the idea of a show around Halloween with maybe a Halloween overall theme. You just don't want it to become all of a sudden a 1 week special where everyone is a child and spooky.
Well, yeah,
happens.
It just loses their mind and gets, fucking dunked in the punch bowl for no reason. Not because it's to get heat on a heel, but just because there's a punch bowl sitting there. I did the Halloween Scream tour in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which was basically just Halloween weekend and a chance to fucking, give a show a name and give it the big lineup. And I think we gave out candy to the kids or whatever.
Yeah, you against contests for the fans? Like, wear your favorite costume if you have a Halloween show?
I don't know that we went that far, because then we'd just be pissing some people off that didn't win. But and then there was that one again, one of my favorite stories, and I'll leave it at this. In Memphis, Monday night fell on Halloween one year, 83, I think it was. And again, they had a big card of wrestling, but it wasn't like the matches were tied to Halloween. But they know that back in those days, they're fighting parents taking their kids out and trick-or-treating like you used to do before all the, illegal aliens who double as, big budget drug dealers started giving away free fentanyl to kids for absolutely no reason. And we've actually never had a case of that documented, but you see it on the news all the time. Nevertheless, so back then they were just worried about a sewing needle in an apple. And I always figured any kid that fucking got an apple for Halloween and actually ate it deserved what he got. So
what the hell does that mean?
Who wants to eat a fucking apple? You can get an apple any day of the week or the month of the year from your fucking mother, and she'll praise you for eating it. You want to load up on fucking Reese cups and goddamn candy that'll give you the shits for 3 days.
You came home from school. Maybe you had a school party for Halloween. You're out there doing stuff. You're with your friends. You're all dressed up. You're getting more candy. Maybe you want to mix it up.
Well, is the apple dipped in chocolate or caramel or something like that?
That I wouldn't trust.
Well, in that case, then fuck anybody that just gives some kid an apple for fucking Halloween. What kind of goddamn narc are they?
There were actually some women when I was a kid that you'd go to the house, they would give you like pennies. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
Yes. And every once in a while you get a nickel too. That was a big deal back where I came from. But nevertheless, so the point is they come out on Memphis TV on Saturday morning and say, hey, folks, we know it taking your kids out to trick or treat these days, it can be awful dangerous out there. So come on down to the Mid-South Coliseum, because what they did was they had all these rooms like janitors' closets and broom closets and empty, ticket booth rooms or whatever in the breezeway of the Coliseum, set up to be the houses of all the baby faces. Like, here's Bill Dundee's house, and here's the Fabulous One's house, and here's Rock and Roll Express house or whatever. And they would let the kids come by, and they gave them some candy and said whenever they come by and knock on the door, give them some candy, right? So they're trick-or-treating with the baby faces, and that was a selling point. Bring your kids to get to trick-or-treat from the big wrestling stars. And you can imagine the guys wanted to sit in the goddamn janitor's closet on a mop bucket and hand out Tootsie Rolls to fucking kids for an hour before the matches, about like, I want to have my goddamn hemorrhoids removed, right? So ended up, they called it a little bit short, I think, of time to get everybody back in the locker room. And also they figured out that the children that the Fabulous Ones were inviting into their room were female kids between the ages of 18 and 30. And they were not answering the door when the other kids would start knocking. And so that's the only year they did that.
Stan! Steve! Are you in there? I hear you!
I'm coming! Anyway, but Halloween is also my wedding anniversary. Mine and Stacy's, the Queen of Castle Cornette's 15-year wedding anniversary will be Monday as we speak here. I don't know when you're listening to this, Halloween Day, and I have plans again. We are going out in public. We're going to do something special for the day. I'll talk about it afterwards. I'll talk about it on your show, on the Drive-Thru, because I can't talk about it beforehand. It does obviously involve us going out in public. There is certain security concerns from the city. I've been notified by the traffic department and the Department of Transportation. I do tend to stop a lot of traffic, cause a lot of commotion and onlookers when I am spotted out and about. They're afraid people may be lining the side of the interstate or the parade route as it is to see me go by so they can salute. So we're keeping it under wraps until after the fact, but I'll have a report on that on the Drive-Thru. But happy anniversary to me and Stacy from me. Happy anniversary, Stacy, from me. She don't get to say back publicly because she doesn't have her own program.
Happy anniversary, Stacy.
Well, there you go. But what about me? You left me out.
I'll speak to you in a few days. She may hear this closer to the anniversary.
Well, she does go to sleep every night listening to us. Which, I don't know why she wants to listen to us, because she never wants to listen to me. But that's only when I'm not on recorded, when I'm actually live instead of Memorex.